Okay, I'm going to talk to you about the final exam, and while you look at the document that I have up on the screen for you, I'm going to talk in a little more detail about the different questions. So you can see, for example, there's 130 points possible. There are 36 questions. There's some 10-pointers and 5-pointers and 3-pointers. So let me give you a little more detail about what to study for. So for the 10-point questions, there'll be a couple of them, and what I'll do is I'll give you some figures. There'll be some bowling scores I give you or some GPAs, and I'll ask you to calculate a standard deviation and the 95% confidence interval about the true population mean. And so there'll be two of those. Make sure you look over the notes that you've taken over the course of this semester. And you can certainly ask me any questions as well beforehand, and I will respond appropriately. For the, let me jump down to the 3-point questions. You can see again on the sheet right here, there's a lot of information I have about the different types of topics you will know, how to determine a sample size, and what are uses of surveys, and what's the difference between an implicit and explicit scale, what is sampling error. So there's a lot of different topics you'll see there. What's the following is true of surveys? You'll see that in one question. I'll ask you about characteristics of scales. What level of measurement is this, a semantic differential or a force ranking scale? Different things like that. What are some strengths and weaknesses of surveys? Which is quicker, a phone survey or a mailed survey? You'll see that as well. And then I'll ask you about confidence intervals, margin of error. So I'll say that you have you want a 95% confidence interval with X% margin of error, and then how would you go about finding out what you need to do for research? So if I say, for example, that you have a 95% confidence interval in one sample and you want a 2% margin of error, but yet in another sample you have a 95% confidence interval and a different margin of error, you need to identify truths about what you can and can't do. So again, you'll see those in the notes that we talked about over the course of the semester. And then for the 5-point questions, there are 4 of them. And one of the questions will ask you to construct a survey question that has certain flaws. And so I'm trying to get you to do here is to know what the flaws are. And of course, you don't want to write a bad question in general, but if you're sending out a survey, you want it to be well done. But I want you to write a question that has specific flaws, because sometimes knowing what flaws are will help you know what is correct. So there'll be a couple of those questions about identifying flaws in questions. Then there'll be a couple of questions about random digit dialing. Remember that we talked about the issue of, are all unanswered numbers ineligible or eligible? I will let you know what the case is. We talked about response rate or non-response rates. We talked about completion rates. So I'll give you all the figures, and you'll need to calculate the completion rate or the non-response rate. So let me know if you have any questions.